Hello and welcome. In this video we are discussing about Java server pages exceptions. So when you write code in JSP, you can make some errors while writing lines of code, and these errors can be classified into different types. But some errors occur when the code is not logically accurate or an internal error from the system. So the concept of handling exceptions to JSP is similar to Java, where exceptions are managed using try-catch blocks. So the concept of handling exception in JSP. So exceptions in JSP. So exceptions can be defined as an object that is thrown during a program run. So exception handling is the practice of handling errors at a runtime. Exceptions can occur at any time in a web application. So therefore, the web developer must handle exceptions to be on the safe side and make the user work flawlessly on the web. The exception implicit object. So an exception implicit object is implemented to handle exceptions to display error messages. The exception implicit object is an instance of the java.lang.throwable class. It is only available for JSP pages with the isErrorPage value set as true, and this means exception objects can only be used in error pages. So types of exceptions in JSP. So there are three types of exceptions in JSP, and these are checked exception, runtime exception, and errors exception. So now let us discuss each of them in detail. Checked exceptions. So checked exceptions are a type of exception that is usually a user fault or a problem that cannot be foreseen by the programmer. And this type of exception is checked at a compile time. And here is a list of some common checked exceptions that occur in the programming domain. IO exception. This is an example of a checked exception where some exceptions may occur while reading and writing a file, and if the file format is not supported, then the IO exception will occur. File not found exception. This is an example of a checked exception where a file in which data needs to be written is not found on that particular path on the disk. SQL exception. This is also an example of a checked exception where the file is associated with a SQL database, and the exception will be if there is a problem or concern with the connectivity of the SQL database. Then runtime exception. So runtime exception can be defined as exceptions evaded by the programmer, and they are left unnoticed at the compilation time. So the list of some common examples that occurred in programming domain. Array index out of bounds exception is a runtime exception. This occurs when the array size goes beyond the elements or index value set. Null pointer exception, also an example of a runtime exception raised when a variable or object is empty or null and users or programmers are try to access it. Arithmetic exception is an example of a runtime exception when a mathematical operation is not allowed under normal circumstances. A common example of such a scenario is to divide the number by zeros. Errors. Error exception arises solely because of the user or programmer. Here you might encounter error due to stack overflows. So some common examples that occurred in the programming domain. Error is a subclass of throwable that indicates serious problems the application cannot catch. Internal error occurs when a fault occurs in the Java virtual machine or JVM, and instantiation error occurs when you are trying to instantiate an object, ultimately failing to do that. So this was a brief discussion on Java server pages exception. Thanks for watching this video. Bye for now.